Yeah, what's going on, man? It's your boy Sir Saint back with another video, and I'm here today to talk about the James Harden saga, the mysterious case of James Harden in Houston. And why does James want to be traded? And which team, which franchise in the NBA should take on James Harden? What would be the best fit for James in his career, and what puts him in the best position to win an NBA championship? I'm going to tell you, it's three teams right now to me in the running for James Harden. The 76ers, the Miami Heat, and very, very low at the totem pole, the Brooklyn Nets. I want to first start out with the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Brooklyn Nets trade is dead. The Nets trade is 1,000% dead, at least to me in the moment. It was an article that came out. Shout out to Shams, shout out to Woe, shout out to all the niggas in the NBA breaking shit all the time. It was an article that came out from Shams that said that the Nets pretty much don't want anything off of Brooklyn except Kyrie or KD. And I can't blame the Rockets. A lot of people think the Rockets are out of their mind asking for Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant. And I don't think so. Listen, Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie and Jared Allen are really nice young players. But Karis LeVert is 26 years of age. Spencer Dinwiddie is 27 years of age. And Jared Allen is 22 years old. Listen, Spencer Dinwiddie and Karis LeVert are the two mainstays in that package for James Harden. And to me, both of them being 26, 27, they're in their primes right now. These are the players that they pretty much are. Karis LeVert being a great scorer, not so much on the defensive end, but a really great high-volume scorer. And Spencer Dinwiddie being a really good point guard in the league, really good ball handler, really good playmaker, underrated playmaker in my opinion. But for James Harden, I need so much more. I need one of Kyrie and Kevin Durant from the Rockets. I'm losing arguably the second or third greatest player in my franchise history. And I don't want to hear anybody say James Harden is the best player that the Rockets have ever had. Have you ever heard of Hakeem Olajuwon? Do your motherfucking Googles. But regardless, I feel like the Nets trade is pretty much dead, at least in my eyes. I don't see any avenue at this point that Brooklyn can put together this big three of James, Kyrie, and Durant. And honestly, if I'm KD, I'm considering trading Harden for Kyrie. And Kyrie hit the shot of shots in 2016 against the Warriors on Steph Curry in Game 7. But James Harden, I just feel, has maybe a higher ceiling. And James Harden doesn't miss games. He's as much of a tank, a health tank as LeBron. I mean, he's went through most of his career without having a significant injury or really a lot of nagging injuries that Kyrie Irving has had for the majority of the time he's been in Boston and Cleveland and even with Brooklyn. He missed time in Brooklyn last year. Championship-wise, forming the big three in Brooklyn they definitely would be maybe the favorite. There's avenues for that to go wrong with Kyrie, James, and Durant all needing the ball in their hands, which is also an overrated aspect because, I mean, it's talent. It's three of the best ball handlers, three of the best scorers that the league has ever seen. So, I mean, it's probably going to work regardless. But still, there will be some cause for concern, definitely some defensive cause for concern with that big three and filling out the rest of the roster. I could see the Lakers giving them a run for their money still. Now, on to the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot has been made of Philly trading for James because the connection between James and Daryl Morey and the possible dominant big two that could be James Harden and Joel Embiid. But I'm here to present the idea that maybe instead of trading Harden for Simmons, maybe you trade Harden for Embiid. If I'm the Rockets, I probably want Joel Embiid more than Ben Simmons. And I love Ben Simmons. I am a big Ben Simmons proponent. But getting Joel Embiid to Houston box office. I mean, he's like the little son, the Hakeem Olajuwon Jr. You can bill him as that in Houston. You can continue your line of great big men from Hakeem to Joel Embiid. And I truly think that would be a good pairing. Harden and Simmons, to me, would be ridiculous on the offensive and defensive end if you think about it in a different way. If you don't think about Simmons running the point on that team, but he can also still be a ball handler. Like my preferred lineup, if you can just trade Harden for Embiid straight up in a couple picks, I would do James at the 1, Curry at the 2, Danny Green at the 3, Tobias Harris at the 4, and Ben Simmons at the 5. Ben Simmons playing center, point center Ben Simmons. I think this idea is crazy enough that it could work. You could damn near play 5 out with Simmons, or 4 out 1 in on Simmons with the ball, or 5 out with Simmons when Simmons is handling the ball. Like, I feel like that team would be really underrated and could really make a run to the finals. Obviously, the Harden and Embiid combo would be just a ridiculous dynamic duo, and I feel like each of their games complement each other as well. But on the flip side, James hasn't necessarily performed with big men well. I mean, he hasn't necessarily had a great big man outside of Dwight Howard in his career, and even Dwight wasn't great for them when he was there. But I don't know if James could really mesh well with another big. Maybe he could. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. But off of Philly, I think the new favorite place for James to go would be the Miami Heat. And I truly just don't know what the Rockets are asking for, or what they would ask for in a trade from the Heat for James Harden. Like, would they ask for Bam and Tyler Hero, or would they ask for a combination of Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, a whole lot of Kendrick Nunn, a whole lot of just of their depth, and a bunch of picks? And I don't know. I don't even know if Miami would consider trading Jimmy Butler for James Harden and having James Harden and Bam Adebayo as a duo, similar to the James Harden and Embiid duo. I truly don't know. I think people are smoking crack that believe that Tyler Hero is untradeable in a trade for James Harden. I think you need to put the crack and the cocaine down. I came across a tweet that said that they would trade Tyler for James, but they would do it almost unwillingly, almost like grimacing at themselves, mad at themselves for doing it. Are you out of your fucking mind? It's James Harden. He's one of the most prolific scorers the league has ever seen. Regardless of a lot of his shortcomings, he is still a top 10 player in the league, a player that is way above the ceiling for Tyler Hero. The ceiling for Tyler Hero is maybe to become an all-star one day, and that's even stretching. Now, I think Tyler Hero is extremely, at this point, he's gotten extremely overrated. And not to say he's not a good player. I think he's a really good player, a really good young player. I just think people expect him to be some top 15, top 20 player next year, and that's just ridiculous. To me, it's out of the realm of possibility for Tyler Hero at this stage in his career. Before this morning, I had the idea that Houston could convince James to stay, but James did a media session this morning, and they spoke to DeMarcus Cousins, and they spoke to Stephen Silas, and it seems like the idea of James maybe staying in Houston is a little far-fetched at this point. Like, I think James knows that if they're not contending for a title, and the Rockets know they're not contending for a title, and at this point, if you're not contending for a title, it's wasting James Harden's time. He only has a couple more great years left in his career, I would assume. But you also have to get down to the fact of, why is James requesting this trade if all of these failures are because of him? And they're not solely because of him, but a lot of them have a lot to do with him. I mean, his meltdown against the Spurs in the playoffs, where the Rockets really could have gone far. James has underperformed in a lot of big moments. He's also performed in big moments, but him forcing Chris Paul out for Russell Westbrook, his longtime friend, was another failure to add on the failures of James Harden. Him and Westbrook just never meshed. And I feel like a lot of people saw that they weren't going to mesh well. Chris Paul not being a Rocket at the moment is a detriment to James Harden. He's had a lot of issues, a lot of problems with coming up in the big moments, and I think that's helped him wanting to get out of Houston. But also, this idea that's floating around the social media sphere of honoring your contract seems really stupid to me. They are honoring their contracts. The idea of the fact a player asked to get traded, at least in the NBA, they need to just honor their contract out. I think the NBA needs to shift towards players signing to the league instead of signing to a team. Because at this point, all players are just signing to the league. They're signing to the NBA to promise them, hey, for 5 years, $190 million, I will be playing basketball. Now, where that basketball will be played and for who that basketball will be played is subject to change at any moment, at any year, at any time. Like, I feel like if it was framed that way, more people would be more receptive to the idea of players moving from here to there, from here to there, from here to there. Because at this point, that's what it is they're just signing contracts with the league. Since their contracts are fully guaranteed, and their contracts just switch over to whatever team they get traded to. They're just signing these contracts with the NBA at this point. Like, I'm going to play basketball for 5 years, $190 million. It's just I'm probably not going to play it in Milwaukee for 5 years. I might play 2 years in OKC, and then I might get traded and play a year in Houston. Like, it just happens this way nowadays. I think a lot of the talk of James Harden and James Harden getting traded, it's a lot of crazy shit going on, man. Who would have thought James Harden would be traded from the Rockets or requested trade? Like, he is the fucking Rockets. It's crazy, man. I don't have much to say anymore about James. Shout out to James. I think, in conclusion, I feel like James, for me, I feel like the best place for James to go would be the 76ers or the Heat. Either one. I'm probably leaning more Sixers, but just for the respect of the ring, regardless of if he cares about that or not, the respect of the ring is important. I think him going to Brooklyn, if they somehow make the trade work, the respect for his ring will be really low. It might be lower than the Durant rings. But regardless, man, shout out to James. Shout out to this YouTube channel. I want you to like the fucking video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I got new shit coming out every fucking day, man. Every day. I'm on here every day grinding for y'all, man. Shout out to y'all, man. And till next time, we're fucking out of here. Let's go.